So this viewer question could spark a philosophical, maybe not a debate, but just a discussion. Comes right over the transom. Why does the law seem to be on the side of the criminal? Tom and I will discuss this question, but first let me tell you we have a gun giveaway going on. It's happening right now. It's absolutely free, but it ends really soon. So click the link in the description down below to reveal which brand new gun you could win. Tom, why is the law always on the side of the criminal? They can get away with murder.
Yeah, so let's try to narrow this down and kind of put a situation together here, because I'm guessing that when folks are saying that on our videos, because we're not talking about narcotics and drunk driving, we're talking about self-defense cases. So I assume that people are pissed off about the fact that, the prosecutors, if they charge someone with a homicide for what we may view as a lawful use of self-defense,
Right.
The prosecutors seem to be siding with the guy who broke into the house, right? Or that it's very easy to see it that way.
He was the bad guy. He deserved to die. And I think that's very simplistic and not correct.
Right. But I think some people also do think that way.
Yeah.
Well, for starters, we have laws. And those laws prohibit people from breaking into homes. They prohibit people from robbery. They prohibit people from sexual assaults. And among other things, they also prevent people from unjustified homicides. Now, there may be a deviation of opinion where, the prosecutor sees it this way and the defense sees it that way, right? People have been arguing, Cain and Abel. Goes back some time at this point.
Yes.
That's why we have a system that allows people to resolve these arguments shy of additional violence. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to hear me say it's a perfect system. I think if we look around the world, we can agree that if it isn't the best, it is among the best. Certainly, if we take a look back at the course of human history and events, and we were to take the Lord knows how many thousands, if not more likely tens of thousands, or maybe hundreds of thousands of type of judicial systems or ways of resolving issues. This seems to be among, if not the best. It certainly has got to be in the top fraction of a percentile, or whatever the case may be. But all of our laws underscore the rights that are outlined not only in the Constitution, but also in the Bill of Rights. And everything ought to be taken as well with the view of and this is something that our justice system, whether you love it or hate it, this is something that undergirds our justice system, that it's better to let 10 guilty men go free than to convict one innocent man. Mm-hmm. And that's not pro-crime, that's pro-liberty at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a police officer, and I don't want government agents like myself. I am a government agent. I don't want them having too much power. By the same token, I want to make sure, and I tell people when I'm teaching concealed carry classes, I tell people that there has to be an investigation into a self-defense incident, and we have to protect people's liberty and their right to life and all those other elements, because we just don't want people running around willy-nilly shooting each other. That's why we investigate self-defense incidents. But by the same token, we still want to, it's a big thing to put someone in prison, to take away their liberty. And we had better be right when we're going to do that. And not only right, but, the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt. We better know for sure that we're doing this because that what we're doing is right. Because if we don't, it is very quickly a slippery slope into governments that exercise way too much authority, and suddenly liberty is gone. And you're right. I would much rather have that dangerous liberty, and I would much rather see a guilty guy walking free than an innocent guy in jail. And it's one of those things where we don't get too crazy on the law enforcement side if we don't pick somebody up that day, because those people who are committing crimes, they're going to commit another one, and we'll catch them again. It is tragic if an innocent person gets killed, but the idea of protecting liberty means we're protecting everyone's liberty. And yeah, we might not like these people, but you know what? If we can take away liberty from the people we don't like, well, then people who don't like us can take away our liberty. And I don't want to see that.
And, keep in mind as well that typically your high profile cases are ones that, not all the time by any stretch, but typically they're ones that, there's going to be strong supporters on both sides of the argument.
Yep.
That's part of what makes them high profile, right? Of this group of people sees it this way, this group of people sees it that way, right? For every one of those, I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other homicide cases you never hear about. I mean, my office has represented, I don't even know. I really don't even know how many self-defense shooting cases in the last year to 2 years. You never heard about it.
Yeah.
Even cases where we've got a body in the ground, never heard about it. And many of those cases, we were able to talk to the prosecutors, and they never even charged them.
Yeah.
So what we have to look at, though, is and those are less teachable cases because they tend to be, there are many pretty bright line, clear cut cases, right? Of I'm standing at a bus stop minding my own business, and a delusional guy with a gun starts running towards me shooting, and miss, I shoot, hit, right? Okay, that's about as clean cut as you get, right? But there's also not a whole lot for us to talk about in that, right? So we kind of deliberately choose cases where there's things for us to pick at, and not all the time. Sometimes we do pick cases where the good guy does just about everything in their power right, but they're less interesting as teachable points. There's our goal in doing this is to make sure that folks can learn something. And while we can look at virtually perfect shoots and kind of tick the boxes and play the what if game and the maybe it depends game even, you can learn a lot more, I think, based off of looking at cases where mistakes were made. It's understandable as to why those mistakes were made in the heat of the moment. We've talked about them many, many times. But as a teachable set, as a teachable tool, I think that's a great entryway into, okay, here's where this mistake was made. You can see how fast this whole thing took place, but let's unpack that now into the education, the training, and then downstream of that, what's going to be the legal consequences of that typically lack of education and training. And that's where I can sink my teeth in, you can sink your teeth in to really go about it.
And I see it as very important that if we make what might be a clear-cut case, bad guy breaks into a house. He's a burglar, known burglar, long history of burglary, breaks into a house. Homeowner shoots the bad guy. And people are now complaining because now there is an in-depth investigation into the actions of the homeowner. And there's a lot of people who say, well, of course the homeowner should have shot the bad guy. That may be true, but I want to make sure that it's true because we don't just want people walking around shooting other people. And who gets to decide who is the good guy or the bad guy? We have courts, we have juries, we have judges, we have attorneys. All of this stuff comes together. And I tell people all the time that the investigation into your self-defense shooting is going to take a lot longer than this 4-hour concealed carry class that I just gave you, because it's important that we do that. And yeah, it might look like we are protecting this dead scumbag, burglar, rapist, whatever it was, who broke into the house, but that's not who we're protecting. We're protecting liberty and the idea that we all have these rights. And, yes, you have a right to a trial by a jury, but you know what? We also have rights to not be overwhelmed by the police and not have illegal search and seizures and not be forced to testify against ourselves and all of those other things. And that's why I think it's very important it might appear we're protecting the bad guy, but we're not. We're protecting everyone's rights.
Yeah, I think that fundamentally a way of going a little philosophical, right? So buckle up.
It's just like a Jungian thing?
No, we're not going to go into archetypes and all that kind of stuff. But, we'll see how high we can fly here. Is what kind of society do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a society where the ends justify the means? In other words, well, look, there's a bad guy, so of course I can shoot him, right? And while, hey, I think we can all, in our darker moments or our red mist moments, so to speak, we can understand that thinking. What if somebody identifies you as the bad guy for whatever reason, and now they think they can shoot you, right? Mm-hmm. So if the ends justify the means, that's a dark place to be. And I think that keep continuing this philosophically, that's how you wind up in a totalitarian state. That's how you wind up in a state with no liberty, with no freedom, with no rights. Our society has always been one that has tried to privilege the fact that the means justify the ends. And that may mean that you can get some, to put it mildly, distasteful outcomes. But the means are the product. Yeah. They're not a bug. They are the feature. Those are our rights. Those are the checks and restrictions on government. These are the columns and the cornerstones of liberty. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but it's a hell of a lot more perfect than if we flip those around and say, hey, the ends justify the means. We can do anything we want because we know what? We know we're getting the bad guy. That's how you wind up in Putin's Russia. Yeah. That's how that goes. Speaking for myself, I don't want to live there. I enjoy Wisconsin. Don't want to live there. But it's important that we protect and understand that the process, going back to what you were talking about, spot on for my view. We are serving a process. If you, God forbid, are caught up in something like this, you are now part of that process. This process will investigate. It will not be perfect. There will be missing pieces. That's why part of the process is your right to an attorney. Not only an attorney, an effective attorney. Okay. That's why you have the judge, the jury, your attorney, courts of appeal, the U.S. Supreme Court, you name it. All those people are checks, fundamentally, on the tremendous power that we invest in law enforcement as well as in prosecutors. That's the system. That's the best one we've been able to find. And other countries, I think, come close. Maybe there's some advantages here or there if we look at certain other places. But I think by and large, I'm not saying that everything we do is perfect and there aren't tweaks that I would, or overhauls in some respects that I would like to see. All of that's natural. We have to continuously have a system that updates itself with time. Part of the advantage of a case law driven system is we can do that. It's a continuously self-renewing process, but we have to have a system based around the process and the rights of the individual. That's what it has to be on.
Well, thank you again for your insight. It's always very helpful, giving people a good look at the entire concept of concealed carry, not just the fact they put a gun on their hip and they're going to be okay. So thank you, folks, for watching all the way to the end of the video. And I will remind you again, we have that gun giveaway going on, so click the link in the description to learn more. I'm Kevin Michalowski. If you enjoy guns, freedom, and everything about concealed carry, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay safe.